everyone. Welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. I'll be your astrologer today. Thank you guys for joining me. Back at it with yet another video. Today I'm going to be continuing my Looking Ahead series, and we're going to be previewing Jupiter in the sign of Cancer. If you guys like my content, you want to see more of it, please click the bell button below, subscribe to the channel. It helps the channel grow. Equally, give me a thumbs up if you like this video and consider sharing with other astro friends. And leave me a comment. I love to hear. Is this your Jupiter return? Is Jupiter making a major aspect in your chart? Are you a Cancer, Sun, Moon, or Rising? And what are you anticipating for this transit? So yeah, we're going to talk about this today. I'm excited about this. Personally, I feel like I have a little skin in the game because it's my Jupiter return. So I'm pretty excited for this. But yeah, Jupiter going into Cancer, I think is going to be yet another big change that we're going to be seeing in 2025. Now, if you guys have been following the series, I started doing it a couple weeks ago. I started previewing Saturn and Neptune in Aries, as well as Uranus in the sign of Gemini. And now we're moving on to Jupiter. So let's talk all things Jupiter. So for information in regards to specific dates and degrees, you guys can always click the description below. I do copy those there for you so you don't have to take notes. But we will see Jupiter's ingress into the sign of Cancer, and that will be taking place later this summer, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere. So June 9th through June 30th is when we're going to see Jupiter in Cancer. So June 9th, 2025 through June 30th, 2026. Jupiter spends roughly about 1 year in each sign, and it will experience a several-month retrograde. Now, in this particular transit this year, we're going to see Jupiter go from 0 degrees to 25 degrees of Cancer. So it's going to actually cover quite a bit of territory. If you have anything that is between 0 degrees and 25 degrees, you're going to be in the direct line of abundance, not the line of fire, with Jupiter coming into conjunction with some of your placements. And Jupiter will be turning retrograde at 25 degrees of Cancer on November 11th, 2025. It will then be going direct around March 10th, 2026, and it will spend a few short months before going into Leo in June of 2026. So I'm guessing you guys are wondering who this is going to affect the most. And the truth is that the easy answer is, it's going to be, my Sagittarius and my Pisces and my Cancer risings. Obviously, if you are a chart that is ruled by Jupiter, so Sag risings as well as Pisces risings, you guys are going to feel your planetary ruler, Jupiter, going into a new house. But any Cancer placements, so 0 to 25 degrees, Sun, Moon, rising, personal planet, maybe you have your Venus there, maybe you have a North or a South node there, Jupiter is definitely going to be bringing some kind of growth, good fortune, and abundance to that area. Jupiter also makes things bigger, okay? And it's in the sign it's associated with the moon, so it's emotional. Now, Jupiter in Cancer, basically in a nutshell, this is the first time in 12 years since we have seen Jupiter kind of moving through this particular sign. So you can actually think back, and I'll actually give you guys some of the dates in just a second, the last times that we saw Jupiter in this sign. But I'm really excited to be talking about Jupiter in the sign because it's all going to be about really diving deep into this more kind of juicy, nurturing type of energy of Jupiter in Cancer. I think this is amazing also because Jupiter is actually feeling right at home in this sign. As many of us know, Jupiter is actually in its place of exaltation in Cancer. So it's bringing extra blessings, growth, and a whole lot of feel-good vibes. So grab your favorite cozy, comfortable spot. Maybe grab a snack, and we're going to unpack what this means for all of us collectively, personally, and obviously across the zodiac. So if you guys stay tuned to the end of my video, I will take you through the final kind of perspectives, I guess I would say, of Jupiter moving through the sign for the 12 rising signs. And first thing I want to kind of talk about is like what Jupiter is all about in astrology. So as you guys know, the North Node is in Pisces. It's going to be in Pisces clear into next year. So Jupiter transits are incredibly important. And if we have been kind of following with what's been happening with the Jupiter transit in this last year, just as like a refresher, Jupiter has been going through Gemini. So it's been in a sign that it doesn't perform as well in. It's in the opposite sign. It's associated with Sagittarius. On one hand, it's positive for expanding communication and learning, but we get a little kind of like overwhelmed, or maybe there can be a little bit of like too much multitasking with Jupiter in this sign. We can also see tall tales and like communication and information overload. If you go back and we look at what's been happening with the Jupiter cycle, Jupiter has actually been in a square with Saturn and Pisces several times throughout this last year. So we saw that really peak in July going into like August of 2024, where there was this conflict between, maturity, boundaries, clarity, our beliefs, and also communication ideas, even media. So it's really kind of materialized in both squares, both in summer of 2024, as well as right at the end of 2024, right around Christmas time, around the 24th, 25th, where we saw the second square. It's been issues and topics relating to freedom of speech. Obviously, Jupiter wants freedom of communication. Saturn wants to kind of shadow ban, or it wants to create issues where we can, not see information or not be able to think so clearly, or have some kind of confusion or distortion of facts. It's also been a lot about, major weather events. We've seen flooding episodes. We've seen major tornadoes. We've seen all kinds of issues revolving around travel concerns also to certain areas, while we've seen major wind and weather events. And this is always really common with the mutable signs. And the squares kind of talk about some kind of friction. So we've seen 2 of these squares, and there will be 3 of them. So the third and final square will actually be baked in, and it will be a part of Jupiter going into Cancer, Saturn going into Aries. And as you guys know, Saturn and Neptune are going to be in Aries. So it's going to be similar friction, because the square represents trying to kind of meet in the middle, or, 2 sides feeling kind of forced to reconcile different modes. Obviously, we're going to deal with cardinal, so it's going to be a lot more, I think, action-packed. And we're going to see this kind of challenge between what's going to be more kind of personal identity matters, Aries, our actions, our desires, versus our emotions, our home, our family, our homeland, our past. So we're going to see that kind of happen. So this will be the third and final square that we're actually going to see in the summer of 2025, right when Jupiter is getting into this sign. Now, what is Jupiter in astrology? Well, Jupiter is essentially like the cosmic cheerleader, right? Like Jupiter is the planet of abundance. It is about wisdom. It's about expansion. Think big picture growth, and whether this is luck when it comes to gambling, wisdom, or just expansion in general, this is the yes, you can planet. And it really pushes us to dream bigger and really trust the universe, and believe that the universe has our back. It wants to bring us travel, expansion, wisdom, good fortune. And with Jupiter moving into the sign of Cancer, this is a water sign that's ruled by the moon. So it's almost like this kind of like optimistic giant really kind of like puts on his like most comfortable kind of slippers and cozies and kind of settles into like a warm, nurturing space. So it's going to be really great for anything relating to home and family. This is also about emotions and security. So with Jupiter being in this sign, it's going to amplify those themes in like the most beautiful way. This can spell out good news for people who have been wanting to buy their first home, wanting to expand their home or their family, wanting to move to a new country, wanting to get back to a much more kind of simple life. So collectively, I really expect this kind of like global shift towards protecting what really matters to us the most. So I think of like community and emotional well-being, and even, like I said, literal homes or the housing market. Likely we're going to see movements around housing, food security, and nurturing traditions start to rise up. As many of you guys know, Cancer is associated with the moon, so that's about mothers and women. So we might see a bit of like a baby boom, or a focus on kind of connecting with mothers, grandmothers, and our roots, our homeland, going back home, things like that will be themes as well. And I think personally, for many of us, this is a time where we really will grow through connection. So family connections, emotional connections, deepening family ties, and finding our chosen tribe, even if that means, friends becoming what feels like our family, or our communities kind of feeling like our family. This is even for some people going to be expanding their literal family, but it really depends on where this is going to be taking place in your chart. It is also about building emotional wealth alongside material abundance. So Jupiter can kind of show us how we can better lean into our emotions and really focus on what we want to invest in, where we want to build, and where we want to grow. And Jupiter in Cancer is a placement that always says, grow where you feel the most safe and let your heart lead the way. Now, here's where you kind of get the extra special sauce with Jupiter's exaltation in Cancer. It means that with Jupiter being in this placement, for some people, it's going to feel like the cosmic lottery. It is at peak power when it's within this position because it's going to really thrive in Cancer's watery, intuitive nature. So this growth isn't just for growth's sake. This is going to be growth that is soulful. It's meaningful expansion. It feels to me like planting seeds in like very fertile soil, and everything that we nurture now has the potential to really bloom big. And to give you guys some context, the last couple of times that we had Jupiter in Cancer, the last several 12-year cycles, we've seen connections and correlations with the themes revolving around Jupiter, growth, wisdom, prosperity, and home, family, and our home countries. So if we go back in time to the last time that we had Jupiter in this sign, this was in 2013. So it was June 25th, 2013 through July 16th, 2014. This was a year, obviously, of emotional recovery post-recession, right? We saw real estate begin to kind of pick up during this time. We also saw a surge in family-focused trends like tiny homes and sustainable living, which is really interesting when you think about it because obviously Jupiter is not tiny, but there was this kind of like shift in belief and philosophy revolving around homes and sustainable living at that time. And I bet you dollars to donuts during that time, from what I remember, there had to be some aspects that were going on with Uranus in Aries, and that might have been what was like unconventional and more kind of independent. Let's go and look at this actually. So we're going to pull up June 25th. And it goes for a year. So yeah, Uranus was in Aries. That's what I thought. So we see Jupiter continue to go through, we'll kind of fast forward, go through Cancer. And it at some point came into a square with Uranus and it opposed Pluto. So it can talk a lot about where there's actually innovations in expanding the way that we look at home and family, maybe being a little bit more mobile, making some changes, being more independent, and also doing that because of, I think Pluto in Capricorn was just what was kind of going on, economically, and also with just some people that were really benefiting from capitalist kind of movements, and other people that were feeling the like oppression of that and how that was like impacting their career and their trade. So a little bit different because we see some aspects, but certainly 2013 into 2014 was very colorful and was not your typical, I think, Jupiter and Cancer transit, because to be honest with you, it was very highly aspected by two planets that really bring about really significant change. And it makes sense that this was kind of post the recession and how real estate was kind of picking up, but like not everybody was really able to kind of get on board. So that was the most recent one. If we go back in time, we go to another 12 years beyond that. So now we're looking at 24 years ago. This takes us to July of 2001, and it was July of 2001 through what was August 1st, 2002. Okay, so at this point in time, the world was healing after obviously, 9/11. We saw that kind of going into obviously the fall of 2001 into the rest of 2002. So it was post 9/11. It was a huge collective focus on safety and community and resilience. Jupiter also deals with laws revolving around airplanes, laws revolving around homeland and homeland security. So what was different about this particular year is that we had simultaneously the North Node conjunct Jupiter. So some would speculate that this is about growth of home and nation and abundance and things being very positive. Obviously, this was also right around like the dot-com busts and stuff, but there was a huge emphasis on home and family and security. However, Jupiter was the dispositor back then of Pluto in Sagittarius, Chiron in Sagittarius, and at the time Saturn was in Gemini. So there were other things kind of going on. I mean, I can see where Jupiter was definitely huge movements revolving around like homeland security and that kind of stuff, but as we were getting into post 9/11, we see the South Node conjunct Pluto, so huge themes revolving around collective fear, especially in regards to culture and like religious groups, and like extremism is Pluto. The conjunction to Chiron is like that fear that, it was having an impact on certain collective communities or countries. And the opposition to Saturn, quite frankly, I feel like was just a lot of harm from media, not really understanding and comprehending the true stories behind some of the stuff that was going on, which ultimately led to a lot more conflict in the Middle East, and obviously a whole multitude of changes that happened here in the United States when it comes to our homeland security, and also, all of the security, which then in turn kind of came for citizens, especially, any security. I'm not going to get too much into it, but it goes beyond just kind of the searches that they're doing at the airport. So I'll just leave it at that. But definitely a lot of legal things that were passed and acts that may or may not have really infringed on our freedom, especially when it comes to communications. All right, so then we're going to go back another 12 years. So now we're going on 36 years ago. And this was the end of July of 1989. And it was July 30th, 1989 through August 18th, 1990. And this was yet another time that we saw Jupiter in the sign of Cancer. Now, back then, we saw in the fall of 1989, the fall of the Berlin Wall, okay? And so this symbolized, I think, for a lot of people, granted, there were other things going on. Saturn and Neptune were conjunct, so they were dissolving, borders and boundaries, and we saw lots of changes going on with culture and also isolation in certain Eastern, European countries. Jupiter opposed that, so it was actually putting an emphasis on growth within family and also, I think, homeland and like reconnection after what has been some separation. We saw also that there was this focus in like reuniting families and like rebuilding emotional foundations. So I do think that all of these cycles have some kind of connection to one another, where we see that Jupiter in Cancer does bring this emphasis on like a nurturing reset after what has felt like some pretty chaotic situations. Over the last several cycles, we either saw, oppositions or squares that were taking place with Saturn, Pluto, and Uranus. So it's really interesting that there's been a lot of outer planet things that have kind of gone on that have really kind of colored the Jupiter in Cancer transit a little bit differently. Especially this one, Chiron was there as well, and we had Jupiter that was also in opposition to Uranus, which kind of represent like major radical changes revolving around what was changing with government and government structures and leadership, and how that was either negatively or positively impacting people's homes and living situation. So I that's my Jupiter return. I have Jupiter in opposition to all those planets in my chart ruler, so I'm kind of curious to see what happens this go around, knowing that we're going to see actually a square to Jupiter between Jupiter and Cancer and Saturn and Neptune in Aries. So it's a similar aspect in a way to what we saw in 1989, except instead of being in opposition, which is more relational, and there's this back and forth between Cancer, Capricorn themes, home and family, work, responsibility. Now it's actually going to be between Jupiter, growth in Cancer, home, emotional stuff, intuition, our also connection to our roots, and that actually being challenged by our vision, right? Saturn and Neptune in Aries is going to be, okay, maybe we want to move, maybe we want to build a home, maybe we want to relocate, maybe we want to live alone, maybe we want to start a family. How are we able to do that? And can we do that, in a positive, abundant way? Or is there some issues with like our beliefs and our perspective? And can there be a little bit of doubt maybe, or lack of faith that could be hindering us from being able to do those things? So it's both a Jupiter square Saturn and a Jupiter square Neptune at the same time. So let's go and look at what's going to be happening now when we have Jupiter going into Cancer. And this is going to be, like I said, happening for us this summer. So starting on June the 9th, 2025, we have Jupiter moving into Cancer. Shortly after that, and this is really going to be right around the ingress through mid-June, we will see Jupiter coming into a last and final square with Saturn. So you're going to have to think back to what was going on in August of 2024, what was going on around the end of December 2024. Jupiter in Gemini was highlighting where we were trying to be optimistic about moving, communications, ideas, learning, media, writing, and also like being able to have like diplomatic conversations. But the squares to Saturn means that it's been incredibly difficult, very challenging, not being able to see eye to eye, lots of philosophical, cultural, even religious conflicts that was kind of hindering us from being able to see so clearly. And now we're going to see the last one, and it's going to be in cardinal signs. And so what's interesting about this for me is that Jupiter is in its exaltation, versus we've got Saturn that is moving through Aries, which is in opposition of its exaltation. So it's actually quite debilitated in this particular sign. Traditionally, when you see a planet opening up on the right-hand side, the planet that is on the left-hand side, so this would be Saturn and Neptune, are in superior position. You hear astrologers talk about how when Jupiter squares Saturn, there is this kind of lack of optimism and feeling like things aren't quite growing as quickly as you want it to. And maybe there is this kind of squashed, momentum, but it's a quick moving transit. But still something to consider is that, when we have the Jupiter ingress, there is going to be this sense of, okay, whatever growth is going to come from this transit is actually being, I think, set off by, well, Saturn, Neptune, and Aries things. Am I not happy? Do I feel stuck? Do I want to start over? Do I want a new lifestyle? What is my new vision for myself and for the future? Where do I have to go? Who do I have to live with? What country should I be in to be able to kind of better manifest some of those things? Jupiter also is the dispositor of the North Node. So, when I said to you guys, the signs that are going to, benefit the most from this are going to be, my Cancers, my Sagittariuses, and my Pisces. There's some truth to that, but the North Node does impact all of us collectively. So while Jupiter is making aspects in the sky, first starting off with a pretty gnarly square to Saturn, where we feel a little kind of limited in terms of our growth and where we can go and what we can do. Maybe Jupiter square Neptune, where we're either like blissfully, ignorant to, the truth, or there can be some sense of us hopelessly and gloriously, believing that things are going to be way better than they could be. Maybe there is this sense of, crisis of faith, or maybe we're just trying not to be too overly optimistic and we're trying to kind of keep our heads screwed on straight with Saturn and Neptune and Aries. Jupiter is going to be very important, and you will not just see one Jupiter aspect this year. You're going to see a bunch of them. So the first one obviously is, like I said, the ingress and the Jupiter square Saturn. So that goes back to a storyline that you've been working through last summer. I think with this square, it's a bit spicy. Saturn in Aries is all about discipline and forging our own path, while Neptune in Aries is about like these dreams that can be very bold, fiery kind of like visions. And I feel like, me just being a Saturn Neptune person myself, I feel like I'm always walking that line between being like, okay, am I too much in woo-woo land, Neptune, or like, do I need to kind of rein it in a little bit more, or, do I need to commit more to my dreams and like my visions? And so it can be really great because it can kind of taper off some of the more difficult aspects of Neptune if you use it appropriately. And when you see this square, it means tension. So there's really this push to balance our emotional security with Jupiter in Cancer, with independence, imagination, and learning how to integrate these two. So it's like kind of saying, like, how do I grow my roots and also chase my dreams in a wild way? How can I do both? How can I stay grounded and kind of situated at home while simultaneously be able to travel, right? Or how do I have a family or have a home or a living situation while also kind of maintain my independence? So you want to kind of watch out. There's going to be some growing pains, especially if you have anything within like the first 5 degrees of the cardinal signs. So Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. You're going to see a little bit of this push and pull energy. And yeah, there's going to be some growing pains, but there's also going to be some breakthroughs. And I feel like this is about really leaning into the challenge and being willing maybe to update your personal vision or your goals for yourself if it means it can bring you more emotional stability or a better living situation. Now, we are going to see, as we're getting into the end of August, this is going to be like the next big transit. And before I get to that, actually, a shout out to a beautiful new moon that's going to be in Cancer. So if you guys are looking for a good election event, we've got June 25th, 2025, moon in its home sign. We've got a new moon at a 4, which is a Cancer degree. It is within a degree in conjunct, Jupiter in its exaltation. Yes, there's some squares to Saturn and Neptune. It's going to push us along the way. But I'm really loving the fact that, still we've got Mercury trine the North Node. We've got a sextile to Mars in Virgo, which is very productive. We also have this forming a yod to Pluto in Aquarius, which means that we got to go big or go home with our dreams. So worthy of mentioning, one of the best new moons that you're going to see, actually, I think, in all of 2025. Then we get to August, and this is where we're going to see the next big kind of shift taking place. And this will be at the end of August. This will be when we start to see Jupiter trining the North Node. Something I didn't mention, but I just want to put this in now, is pretty much the whole, mid through end of June, right? When Jupiter first enters into Cancer, it's not just squaring Saturn, it's squaring Neptune. So, I didn't really get into that, but there are going to be kind of, like I said, am I dreaming too big? Am I seeing things clearly? And because Saturn and Neptune are moving very closely together, by the time you get into July, we're no longer in that Jupiter-Neptune square. Okay. So when we're in August, at the end of August, we're going to start seeing Jupiter trining the North Node. Okay. So wonderful aspect. Finally, we're starting to see that there is some kind of destined, growth that's supposed to be happening. Obviously, North Node in Pisces about, our vision, our intuition, releasing, letting go, endings, new beginnings, spirituality, visions, what's going on for the collective. So to see Jupiter, the ruler of, or the dispositor of the North Node, in a trine, which is a Jupiterian aspect, free-flowing, expansive, makes everything feel bigger. And this could be more emotions, stronger intuition, more, positive growth that's going on when it comes to home and family dynamics. But it could also mean that a lot of people are like, oh my God, this is so emotional and I'm dealing with so much change and the change is happening in such big ways type of vibes. So, oh my stars, man, this is huge. Like that North Node about the collective destiny pointing us towards growth. And I feel like in Pisces, it's about spirituality, compassion, and surrender, going with the flow. That trine from, its ruler is like kind of like a cosmic high five, I think, from the universe. I see this as very positive, amplifying our spiritual evolution and obviously our emotional wisdom. So, this aspect really says lean into your soul's purpose this summer, nurture your dreams, trust the divine timing, and watch for miracles and as they unfold, because this is very rare. It's a very beautiful boost that's really great for healing as well as aligning with something that's much bigger than ourselves. Now, as we get into the fall of 2025, we're going to now take a look at the next big aspect, which is happening in November of 2025. And as you guys know, Jupiter is going to turn retrograde around November 11th. So you're going to see Jupiter that's going to be in a trine now with Saturn, and it's in a wide trine. It's going to turn retrograde at 25, and Saturn and Neptune's only going to get to 29, but it is going to be in a trine with Saturn and Neptune. So now, unlike the squares that we have been seeing, right, in the fall, in the summer of 2024, at the beginning point when Jupiter entered Aries, when Jupiter enters Cancer this June, now we see a trine aspect between Jupiter and Saturn and Neptune. So this is actually, I think, a good trine. We're going to have this in the midst of Scorpio season, where you will see, Mars will have gone through Scorpio, a lot of passion and dynamic action and activity. Sun's going to be in a trine with Saturn and Jupiter, which can be really great for like really feeling like, okay, there is sustained growth and the change could be a good thing. Venus is going to be there. Very watery once again. But I think this fall, when we see all of this kind of come together, to me, it feels like a cosmic love fest. These trines are harmonious, they're flowing energy, and I feel like with trines from Saturn and Neptune to Jupiter in Cancer, it's very dreamy, and it's going to be peak manifestation period for a lot of people. Jupiter in Cancer obviously is going to be nurturing abundance, and that's true as we go through Scorpio season. We're seeing trines to Saturn and Neptune, which could be about depth and structure. So I'm thinking this is great for emotional healing, collective projects taking off, maybe even building a legacy that feels very soul aligned for a lot of people. Time to trust our intuition in the universe to co-create. I think that November is going to be such an awesome period, and this is when we start to kind of really embrace some of the change that has kind of happened. Obviously, these are just a few of the hot takes. I just wanted to do a little bit of like a preview of what this is going to look like this year. As we get closer to June, we'll definitely dive a little bit deeper into this. But for right now, I think how to best work with this energy. I think a lot of people, have mixed feelings about this, knowing that Jupiter is going to, first, as it comes into Cancer, it's going to square, Saturn and Neptune. And I think that can definitely make a little bit of people in the astrological community kind of go, yeah, it's not necessarily going to start to feel good until we're coming out of that square. But don't let it squash the immediate transit. I feel like this is all about nurturing your roots with Jupiter in Cancer. So the more that you're investing in your home, your family, your living situation, maybe going back home, doing some family ancestral work. This could be a renovation project, a heartfelt conversation with somebody. This is where luck is going to flow. It's going to be about working with that emotional kind of expansion. Cancer is also a sign that is notorious for being very intuitive. And I feel like this is all about trusting your gut. So if you have Jupiter, going through one of your water houses, it might be a little bit more prominent. Or if Jupiter is going to be aspecting your moon, your rising, maybe your fourth house, you're going to notice that there could be a boost in your intuition. So listen to those hunches. They're almost going to be your compass, where to move, how to move, when to do things. That's going to be very strong with Jupiter in this sign. I also feel like it's about giving generously. Share your time and your resources with other people. Abundance grows when you spread love, when you spread generosity, and you're willing to help others in need, especially if you're willing to donate clothes or resources or time or anything that deals with pregnant women, mothers, and children. This could be donating clothes. This could be helping people who are homeless. Maybe it could be volunteering time and like feeding others. Maybe you're donating food or clothing. That can be a great way to be able to kind of best work with this energy. And like I said, having looked at past cycles with Jupiter in this sign, historically, we have always seen themes where there has been these sparks of compassion and growth. So whether it was post 9/11 and how communities rallied with each other, or it was, 2013's focus on, sustainability. I think with that North Node trine, this transit is extra spiritual, and it's really kind of helping us tune into our collective calling. So the takeaway for me is that Jupiter this particular year is really inviting us to expand our heart space. This is about growing our emotional roots and protecting what we love. And I think for a lot of us, it's going to be about dreaming up a life that feels like home, that feels like where we're supposed to be. Yes, the squares are definitely going to test us, but the trines, especially in the fall with the North Node, will be pure magic. And if you guys stay tuned, I will take you through the 12 rising signs, and we will talk a little bit about what this means for you. Once again, would love to hear your guys' feedback if you can remember your last Jupiter transit in Cancer, if you want to give some feedback on what happened and what you're anticipating happening this time around. It would be really cool to hear from some of you guys in the chat and in the comments section. I was just thinking about it. So I have Jupiter in Cancer, and it's in my 10th house. And it makes a lot of aspects of my chart. It opposes Saturn and Neptune in the fourth, and it squares my moon. It's conjunct Chiron. And I was thinking about what happened the last time I had my Jupiter return. And what's funny is I've always had a habit with Jupiter in my 10th house of always either working with family or going into the family business, or it was like I was doing work and like working in a home. So the last time that Jupiter went through my 10th house and I had my Jupiter return, I got hired to go and work at a metaphysical shop when I was living in LA. That was a metaphysical shop that was actually in a house, and it was a house that was in Echo Park. And I ended up getting hired literally within like a few days of my Jupiter return. And it was a house at the top of the hill, which makes me kind of laugh that I have Jupiter in the 10th house. Anyway, so I ended up going and working there and being there for several years and like teaching and like working. And then the time before that, when I had my Jupiter return and it was an aspect of Pluto, that was like right around the time I got my first job. And it was also a time where I got into, doing like tarot and astrology. I actually worked for a long period of time through high school into college as a baker. I worked as a bakery's assistant, and then I was getting to where I was coming in and like running the whole bakery. Obviously, I have Chiron and Aries in Cancer as well. So I kind of laughed because I was like, man, it was always about moving on up in my career and doing something where I was either working within a home or being in like a caretaking position. So I'm curious to see how this is going to work this time around. But yeah, give me your guys' feedback. I love to hear from you guys and how this kind of manifests for you. So let me take you through the 12 rising signs. We're going to talk about what this Jupiter ingress in Cancer is going to look like. And like I said, this is just a preview. As we get closer to June, we'll do another video on this, and we'll do a little bit of like a deeper dive and see how this is kind of manifesting for the collective. As always, I am a Western astrologer, and I'm going to be showing this to you guys from the perspective of the whole sign perspective chart, especially because Jupiter is going to hit 0 degrees. So we can definitely look at this from whole sign perspective. If you happen to have a placidus, housing system that you work with, that's fine. Just go and see which house 0 degrees of Cancer is in. It's going to be 0 to 25 degrees this year, so you might have to look at more than one rising sign prediction to know what's going to happen. And special attention to my Cancers, my Pisces, and my Sagittarians, okay? I think you guys are the ones that are going to be feeling the impacts of this the most. All right, so we've got Aries and Aries rising. What's up, Aries? All right, so just as a recap for you, Jupiter rules your 9th house, which can deal with higher education, law, legality, anything in regards to travel, your belief systems, higher education, as well as teaching, publishing, or traveling. And the 12th house, which is foreign lands, it can also be about your spiritual beliefs, anything kind of connected to traveling to foreign lands as well. This can be about religion or spirituality. This can also be about hidden talents and things that you kind of do behind the scenes. So with Jupiter going into your 4th house off the bat, it means that there is some kind of growth and development that's going on in regards to your emotions, your home, or your family. I think a lot of Aries risings are going to benefit from either traveling to kind of visit homelands, learning more about their ancestry. It can also mean that there is like a lot of work that you're doing with ancestors and you're learning about that and some of like your traditions. Some of you guys might be experiencing further relocations or maybe having children or family members that are going away for school and kind of moving in or out of a space, but also expansions, new homes, renovations, and new additions to your family are likely with this transit. Really, this is all about growing in your home life, and whether that's moving, redecorating, or deepening your family bonds. The theme is all about emotional security, becoming your superpower, and I really recommend focusing in this next year on creating a very cozy sanctuary. It'll definitely fuel some of your more kind of fiery and feisty ambitions with Saturn and Neptune in your 1st house. Good luck, Aries. We've got Taurus and Taurus rising. What's up, Taurus? You're going to be experiencing Jupiter's transit in your natal 3rd house. Obviously, this isn't a sign that sextiles you. So whether you have a sun, moon, or rising, it's in harmony with some of your placements. And I like this transit for you. Jupiter does deal with your goals, your networks, your friends, your associations. It also has a direct connection to change, resources, other people's money, spouses' money, inheritance, taxes, that kind of stuff. So when we put Jupiter in the 3rd, there's more conversations about intimacy. There's more documents and things connecting to finances. There's more trying to figure out how to grow maybe your audience and how you communicate and connect. Maybe a year that you start a blog, a YouTube channel, maybe you start writing or teaching a class. Maybe there is just going to be a boost in some of these things if you're already doing some of this work. But communication blossoms. So writing, teaching, connecting with siblings as well as neighbors are positive, and you have the opportunity to expand your connection with community. So there could be a community group. It is possible that maybe you're just kind of getting to know people in your local community more. Maybe you are picking up a new car. Maybe you're going on road trips. This can also happen with Jupiter going through your 3rd house. I would really just say the theme is about focusing on nurturing your voice, and that will lead to some kind of abundance. And I would just recommend for you guys to really share your wisdom, because I feel like now is a time for you to be heard. People want to hear what you have to say. Starting some kind of, I would say like subscription-based something, whether it's a newsletter or if it's a channel or something like that, where you can talk, you can share, you can give advice, actually can be really wonderful for bringing in some extra income. Okay? Good luck, Taurus. We've got Gemini and Gemini rising. You guys are going to be experiencing Jupiter's transit in your natal 2nd house of personal possessions, money, income, self-esteem, spending power. And Jupiter is connected to your career, right? Your profession or your identity out in the world, how people see you. It's also connected to your relationships. So anything connecting to managers, clients, one-on-one relationships, spouses. But the 2nd house is your money. So your income gets a boost or your spending increases depending on what you've got going on elsewhere in your chart. Positive is that I think the connection to the 10th house it kind of suggests that there's more responsibility. There's more of a focus on leadership, expansion in your professional life, or out in the world. And that leads to increased self-esteem, maybe increased cost of expenses for a partner, for a career, maybe even for your home expenses. But, you're going to see that the universe is going to help kind of provide for you and bring in other financial opportunities to make some of these things grow. So money and self-worth get a boost. New income streams will be coming in, or you're just really valuing your talent more. The theme is emotional wealth equals material wealth. So when you have water signs in the second house, it means that how you make money is really going to be impacted by how you feel. Cancer is how you feel working from home, how you feel about your home situation. Do you feel like you have emotional security? The more that you're feeling your way into that and knowing your worth and asserting yourself at work, the more productive and the more abundant you're going to be this year. So I would really recommend investing in what feels safe and also what feels soulful. Good luck, Gemini. We've got Cancer and Cancer rising. Obviously, you're the star of the show, Cancer. This is your transit. Definitely take some time to think about what's happened in previous cycles over the last 12, 24, 36 years. Jupiter going into your sign is basically like a reboot. So this is a brand new cycle. It's basically ushering in something new for you for the next 12 years. Jupiter is associated with your 9th house of culture, belief, travel, higher education, teachers, and gurus, law, legality, and publishing. It's also connected directly to, obviously, it's also directly connected, obviously, to your sign as well as Sagittarius. So when we look at the connection to Sagittarius, this is going to be about work. This is also about skills, health, and also your daily routine. So it can mean that it's a combination of focusing on better physical and emotional health and habits. It can mean that you are traveling for work. It can mean that there is a new pet that comes into your life, maybe that you're working with a new team, you have a new office, a new schedule. But it also can mean that you're navigating something about your daily routine, your health, with a combination of faith and philosophy. Generally, Jupiter on the ascendant, it wants you to grow in some way, and it can be emotionally, but it can also mean that it wants you to travel more. It wants you to believe in yourself. It wants you also to make time for health and well-being. Truth be told, when Jupiter crosses the ascendant, it can obviously expand the waistline because Jupiter wants growth, and it will overindulge, especially in sweet or savory things when it's in this sign, particularly bread, or it can be sweets or, dairy related things, very Cancer. So be mindful of that. But you can negate some of those potential effects if you're traveling, if you're learning about health and fitness, if you are making time also for education. That is one way to kind of feed and nurture Jupiter. So you're not seeing it kind of expand in a physical way. However, Jupiter on the ascendant is great for pregnancy. So if you are hoping to get pregnant, wanting to get pregnant, even if you're not expecting to get pregnant, certainly having Jupiter in your sign can do that, especially if you're a Cancer rising or if you're a Pisces rising. Those are the two signs that I think are going to see this the most significant. What else? And I think that for you guys, this is just a glow up. This is about confidence and your identity and your personal growth really soaring. You are the star of your own nurturing journey in Jupiter on your ascendant. And this is all about embracing your softness. I think that is going to be your strength and your superpower with this transit this year. Good luck, Cancer. I'd love to hear what happens for you guys. We've got Leo and Leo rising. You guys are going to experience Jupiter's transit in your 12th house. And obviously the 12th house is hidden, spiritual, behind the scenes. It's kind of your cocoon phase. Jupiter is connected to your 8th house of joint income and money, other people's resources, debt, taxes, insurance, as well as your 5th house of children, creativity, self-expression. So there could be a lot of investing yourself in your kids, your creative hobbies, your projects. You're working on things behind the scenes. Family could be changing. Finances could be changing here. And Jupiter in the 12th house for me is like the guardian angel year. Things may come to a conclusion or come to an end, but it's always for good reason, or there is some kind of like saving grace that happens with Jupiter in the 12th house. I do think that there are lots of spiritual awakening opportunities with Jupiter in this sign. Dreams, intuition, and healing all take center stage. Do you consider spending some money in learning more about psychology, therapy, past life regression, healing? Do you decide that you want to go on a retreat somewhere to kind of work on something or heal something? Maybe. Is it possible that you are going to be tapping into past lives and intuitive development or hypnosis? Yes, you could do that. The truth is that inner growth really fuels your outer shine. So there is a lot more working behind the scenes, preparing the soul emotionally, getting ready to make major changes at home and with the family before Jupiter goes into your sign, which will be next summer in 2026. I would advise you guys to, journal or meditate, do some kind of intuitive development, learn about your ancestors, because the 12th house is ancestors, and Cancer could be the maternal side of the family. So grandmothers and great grandmothers, and learning about, maybe some of their spiritual beliefs or some of their religious beliefs, something that can kind of help you feel connected and protected with the other side, I think can be really wonderful throughout this transit. All right, so next we have our Virgos and Virgo risings. You guys are going to experience Jupiter's transit in the sign of Cancer. It's going to be in your natal 11th house. This will be sextiling you if you're a Virgo sun, moon, or rising, so it's friendly. We've also got Jupiter's connection to your 7th house of relationships, partnerships, clients, and spouses, as well as your 4th house of home, family, the past, your living situation, and your roots. So obviously having Cancer in the 11th house, your friends are your family, right? So this can mean that there are more communal kind of family style friend dinners. There can be also opportunities to meet new people. And this is because with Jupiter in your 11th house, your friendships and your dreams, they expand. This is your dreams as well as your goals. New tribes of people can appear, big goals can manifest. This can also be a time where if you're looking to meet somebody, you could get set up through a friend, or a friend could become a partner in some way, or just through socializing. Maybe there's more connection, something that is more kind of enmeshed between your committed relationships and your friends. So if you're in a relationship, you're married, you're spending more time with your friends, maybe they're meeting your friends, kind of that kind of stuff. And I also feel like this can be a lot of reconnecting with friends from the past. So you might notice that you're traveling back home work, you see your friends, or you have friends kind of visiting in town. They call you, hey, let's get together, let's have dinner. So you're going to have an opportunity to host people and also be hosted in other people's homes. You will see lots of positive things happening for your friends. You'll see friends that are getting married, having babies, getting engaged, buying homes, and there's going to be lots of celebrations going on. You're going to want to be there. You're going to want to be there to celebrate those things. You're also going to be talking about some of your goals with your partner as well. And like I said, if you're single, you got to get out there and socialize to meet people. The whole focus here is that community is really going to nurture your ambitions. You want to be thinking about being around positive, optimistic, joyful people. So collaborate with like-minded souls, focus on your goals, especially when it comes to your social networks or your committed relationships. Good luck, Virgo. We've got Libra and Libra rising. You guys are going to be experiencing Jupiter's transit in your natal 10th house in the sign of Cancer. As many of you guys know, this is happening in a sign that squares you. And this is also, I think, very interesting for Libra risings. Because, you have your placements, especially if you're Libra rising, let's say like the first 5 degrees of Libra, you're going to have Jupiter going through Cancer. And then you also have Saturn and Neptune that's going through Aries. So it's going to almost make this Jupiter transit the focal point of a T-square between your sun, moon, rising, ascendant, and also Saturn and Neptune. So it's going to be a little bit more action-packed for you guys. Jupiter going through the 10th house is definitely career breakthroughs, okay? So you'll have to go back and think about what's happened in previous cycles. For you, Jupiter represents your office space, your work schedule, your health, your routine, who you work with, where you're working, how you can be of service and help other people. It is also directly connected to communications, writing, teaching, sharing. Third house can be social media. It can be about blogs, writing, and anything kind of connected to teaching and sharing. Jupiter, I think, going through the 10th house is going to be interesting because it's bringing a lot of visibility here. So if you have the opportunity to help people, or if you're in a healing profession, if you work with pets, if you work with, hospitality, if you work in healing or in communications, writing, teaching, and sharing, you're going to get a boost. You're going to be seen a little bit more throughout this transit. I do think that this is recognition and some kind of soul path emerging for my Libra risings. So the theme for this is really success, feeling like home, feeling comfortable speaking in a public way, being able to share and help other people. The key here is to lead with empathy. And I think that empathy is really going to be your ladder up. And if you're not working or you're retired, it's going to be about, okay, well, I don't have a career, but what am I doing out in the world? How can I help my community? Am I, working with a community-based education program? Am I volunteering at something that is going to be helping animals or some kind of nonprofit? And I think the square to Saturn and Neptune is if you're having some questions revolving around partnerships, relationships, your marriage. It could also be issues revolving around relationship with clients. There can be like big announcements and things that are being made that's like, hey, I'm taking space from someone, or I'm taking a break from clients, or I'm taking a break to do something because I'm doing this thing. I'm going back to school, I'm writing, I'm focusing on content, whatever. And that might be something that kind of comes up for you sometime this summer. Good luck, Libra. We've got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. Scorpio, you're going to be experiencing Jupiter's transit in the 9th house of Cancer, and it will be trining you by signs. If you have anything 0 to about 25 degrees of Scorpio, sun, moon, or rising, you're going to benefit from this. Truth be told, if you guys saw my Astro Bite, I do think the water signs benefit from these transits the most because of the trines. But if I had to put my finger on which sign I think is probably going to do the best with this transit, it would be Scorpio risings, purely because of the aspects. And I think a lot of that is connected to the fact that, Jupiter rules your 5th house, which is about children, creativity, dating, self-expression. This could be about taking chances, hobbies, also your personal joy, and also money. Okay, so anything in regards to your resources, your growth, your self-esteem. Knowing that Jupiter rules these 2 amazing houses, knowing that Jupiter is exalted this year and that it is going to be in your 9th house where Jupiter loves to be, I think is like the most amazing cosmic setup for Scorpio and Scorpio risings ever. Jupiter going through the 9th house, adventure calls. So there is this sense of, okay, I want to travel, I want to learn. There are spiritual quests that come up for you. Long distance relocations can happen here, Scorpio. More opportunities to travel and to go back home or to connect with family at a distance. Can you spend more money on travel or education this year? Absolutely. It is the ruler of your 2nd house. But it will be in harmony with your ascendant, sun, or moon. And it's also going to be in harmony with the North Node and Saturn to some extent in your 5th house. So I think that also for some Scorpios, there is expansion through exploration, but what is that exploration? If it's not education, if it's not a new home, it's 5th house things. Are you learning how to play an instrument? Are you realizing how fun it could be to have a kid? Are you thinking about learning more about marketing and maybe anything connected to home, domestic related things, design? Do you start your own business from home? That kind of stuff can start happening, and certainly big risk, big reward can come for some of you guys that are willing to kind of take a chance and do some of these things, even if it's not actually about money or business or travel, if it's matters of the heart, because it's trining Saturn and Neptune and the North Node in your 5th. So I think a lot of Scorpio and Scorpio risings may become parents, they may become grandparents. I think a lot of them may also graduate or get married or go through a certification period this year that's going to allow them to explore the world more, or to feel a little bit more in tune and capable of being able to navigate those fields. And it's all about stepping out of your comfort zone, Scorpio, because really I think the world is waiting to kind of see what you're going to do and what you're going to put out there, okay? Higher education, travel, and publishing, this is great for you guys. Good luck. We've got Sag and Sag rising. What's up, Sag? Obviously, your chart ruler, Jupiter, is on the move. So this is interesting for Sagittarius risings. You guys might have to put on your thinking caps, go back to 12 years ago and think about what happened. But Jupiter rules your 1st house. So wherever Jupiter is a representation of you. So the 1st house is the body, the appearance, anything in regards to your joy or optimism, and obviously how you carry yourself. It's also connected to your home, your family, and the past. So family situations, domestic situations, where you've been. And Jupiter is going through the 8th house. So it's going to be in a sign that's going to in conjunct or quincunx you, which basically means you don't have anything in common. Sag is fire, it's growth, it's about expansion, it's about excitement, adventure. Cancer says, let's play it safe. Let's stay on the home front. Let's basically focus on kind of growing our roots. We don't need to go out. Let's stay home. So with Jupiter's connection to you and your fourth house, it tells me that there is something that is dramatically changing in terms of joint income between you and a partner. There could be tax matters, inheritance matters. There could also be growth that can come from a business partner or a romantic partner. And that growth is going to be psychological, emotional, or within your home and your family. Okay. So that's really the theme. But the eighth house is about transformation. So you might be investing in a home. You might be saying, hey, we want to renovate, or we're going to take out a loan, or we're going to, make a change with our mortgage. It could also mean that you are directly benefiting from family, that you are getting ready to either be given money from your family to pay off a home, to buy a home, to get a down payment on something, to renovate. It can also mean that you may inherit property, or you might be inheriting something from a relative. I know nobody wants to hear that, but that is possible, especially with Saturn and Neptune in your fourth house. As they trine, it's saying that whatever change is happening on the home front is actually really good. And whatever you're receiving from somebody else is going to actually help you kind of cover your expenses and your bills and feel a little bit more so supported. But the bottom line here is Jupiter in the eighth house. Planets don't go through the eighth house without a deep transformation. So this is about your shared resources, intimacy, and emotional rebirth because it's in the sign of Cancer. The focus here is about vulnerability. It's going to bring you abundance. I think that this is all about trusting other people to help support your growth and saying, yes, thank you, I received that. Good luck, Sagittarius. We've got Capricorn and Capricorn rising. What's up, Capricorn? Very interesting for you guys as well, especially if you have anything 0 to about 5 degrees of the first few degrees of Capricorn. Similar to what I said to Libra, you are actually going to be in the midst of what's going to be a cardinal T-square. This is actually going to make Saturn and Neptune the focal point of this T-square. So Jupiter going through the 7th house of Cancer. Jupiter's connection to your 3rd house of communication, moving short distance trips, vehicles, and learning. It's also connected directly to Sagittarius, which is what is subconscious, what's hidden behind the scenes, what you do not see. So it's a little sweet and salty. Jupiter going through the 7th house means that you're confronting people or situations that you did not know were blocking you or hindering you. Right? And this could also mean where you felt blocked in relationships, where you felt like there were some blockages with some of your siblings, or maybe you were having some issues communicating with partnerships or relationships. Now it's being aired out. Jupiter is going through your opposite sign, and in the 7th house, it's meant to expand relationships. So if you're a single Capricorn, Sun, Moon, or Rising, this can actually be really good for you. It can bring you some kind of opportunity to have expansion in relationships. And for women, Jupiter can represent a husband. So this can mean that you are talking about getting married. You meet somebody this year. By the end of the transit, you get engaged. The 12th house connection can also show you where there has been maybe some blockages in relationships that now become clear to you and you can work out, especially with a therapist or with like a lawyer. That would be the 7th house Jupiter transit. Now, this is going to improve the likelihood of bettering relationships with neighbors and siblings, bettering relationships with existing committed partnerships, and being able to travel, move, or relocate with partners. What's interesting is that Jupiter will square Saturn, your chart ruler, in the 4th house. And Saturn being in the 4th house means that, you might be moving, relocating, moving back home. There can also be a sense of wanting to define your own home or personal space. That's being challenged by Jupiter in the 7th house. Not necessarily a bad thing. You might move and then meet somebody, or it might mean that through having a little bit more independence with family, it betters relationships, or having independence from an existing relationship, it betters relationships. And I've had this transit. I remember having like my Saturn return happening right around the time I was seeing Jupiter getting ready to go into my 7th house, and it ended up manifesting as, being like, I'm going to move. And then I ended up moving in with who is now my husband. So those transits all kind of happening right around the same time. I think in retrospect, now it makes sense, but sometimes you can feel a little like heavy on the home front. And I would say you need to have a more Jupiterian person around you that's going to be kind of pumping you up and being like positive and optimistic about the changes coming. So I don't care if it's, a sibling that you're calling, if it's a boyfriend or a girlfriend. I don't care if it's like a neighbor that you become friends with. or just somebody who could be like a therapist or even astrologer. A Jupiter transit in the 7th house is a wonderful time to talk to an astrologer, especially those of you guys who have questions about astrocartography with Saturn and Neptune in your 4th, and you're like, where is home? Or it could be a time that you have questions about relationships and you're wanting to get some insight about relationships as well. So relationships may bloom for many of you guys, partnerships deepen, new love can arrive, but so can new managers, new clients, new business partners. Really, love is what's going to nurture your foundation this year. So I think if you guys open your heart, you're going to feel that it's a little bit safer to connect, and you can kind of get out of this past storyline of feeling like you always have to be stuck or you always have to be alone. Good luck, Capricorn. We've got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. You guys are going to experience Jupiter's transit in the sign of Cancer in your natal 6th house. Now, this is going to be moving through a sign that inconjuncts or quincunxes you. So something to think about is you don't have a lot in common. At some point through this transit, you will see Jupiter quincunx Pluto. So there is this sense of needing to really focus on changes and transformations when it comes to your health, your body, your nervous system, anything relating to aging, purging, purification processes. And Jupiter in the 6th house is saying, hey, your emotions, they impact your physical body. So your health, your habits, your work, and your routine needs to be looked at if you want to go through change in a positive way. Now, Jupiter deals with your self-esteem, money, food, and resources. This is what you buy, and this is what you consume. It's also connected to Sagittarius, which is about your friends, your goals, your networks, and your social situations. So I think Jupiter going through the 6th house for many of you guys can mean you're spending more money on your health. Could be a gym membership, could be a new doctor, could be you're spending more money on medications or some kind of treatments. It could also mean that you're spending money in connecting with friends, and it could mean that you're joining a health spa or a health club where your friends go. It could mean that maybe you're spending a little bit more money when it comes to your office space. You might move to a new office. You might spend a little bit more money on it, but I think you'll like it and it'll be more social. You could have a new pet this year. This is also possible that you are spending money on improving or updating your home, as the 6th house can be people who come in and fix things. So kitchen renovations, replacing tile, redoing flooring. That could be something you guys work on this year as well. But really, this is about work and wellness thriving. And I think new routines or job opportunities will come. The theme here is that self-care really fuels productivity. And I would recommend that you guys build habits that feel comfortable, that are good for you emotionally. It's also a healthy habits revolving around food and your home organization, as well as your self-esteem. Like, there is a need to really focus on that. If you have been having health issues, likely you can find the Jupiter and Cancer transit can better, kind of make some of this stuff go away. Even if you have to spend a little bit of time or resources on, improving your health, I think it's going to be money well spent. All right, good luck, you guys. I will see you soon. And we have Pisces and Pisces rising. So Pisces, your Jupiter ruler is on the move. It is moving into Cancer in June, and it will be sitting in your natal 5th house. So as I said, water signs, they benefit from this transit. You would probably be number 2 in my list of who would benefit the most, as Jupiter is moving through a house that it loves to be in. Traditionally, the 5th house is connected to like the Sun or Leo. And Jupiter is also traditionally seen as kind of like a fiery, feisty, Sagittarian sign. So what better way to experience your Jupiter transit than in the 5th house, where play, creativity, love, romance, self-expression really has a profound emotional impact on you in a very good way. I think that, this is all about creativity and joy exploding. I think this is about art, romance, or even children being magic. Jupiter is connected to your 1st house of you, self-appearance and body, but also your 10th house of your career, your reputation, your purpose. So if you want to become a published author this year and write a children's book, great. If you decide you want to launch your own business and you want to do something that's connected to hobbies or home or women or anything connected to like clothing, could be great. This could be a year where your status changes and suddenly you take on a romantic partner and now you're a part of a team, or you become a parent. I mean, obviously Jupiter being the ruler, it's in the 5th house in Cancer, trining planets in your 1st house. Eclipse is also in your 1st house. I think a lot of Pisces and Pisces risings are going to get pregnant this year or next year. especially around the eclipses. So you'll see that around September of 2025. And then we will see some other eclipses that are happening and some retrogrades next spring, which could bring that up as well. But I think play is your path to growth. Creativity is your path to growth. And I think a lot of you guys are maybe feeling a little conflicted because you're going to see Jupiter square Neptune, your other ruler, where you're going to be like, well, how much time or energy am I willing to expend or invest in this? I've had the Saturn Jupiter square in similar places actually. And every time that I've had that kind of square between the two planets, it's been, well, I have to create for the sake of creating. I can't create just because I want to make money. I'm going to do something because I like to do it. And whether that's taking an art class or launching a YouTube channel, whatever, they were risks that I was willing to take. And I invested time and energy into it. And the things that I was the least, I think, detached in a sense of making money were the things that I was the most successful at. So get out there, create, play, follow what lights you up. Really, Jupiter is your lucky star, and whether it's a new hobby, a romantic, partner, a new business, or even a new, addition to the family, all of these things I think can be really beneficial. You just have to believe that it's worth your time and your investment. Good luck, Pisces. All right, guys. Well, there you have it. That is previewing Jupiter in Cancer. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and consider sharing it with other people. Love to hear your feedback on what you think is going to happen with this Jupiter transit. Have you guys also been eyeballing that new moon in Cancer like I have? And what do you think is going to be the effects of the Jupiter square Saturn and Neptune? What do you guys think about that? I'd love to hear from fellow people who are also having their Jupiter return this year. So if you're having that, it'd be cool to kind of hear from you guys and what you guys think about some of the aspects that are taking place. Thank you guys so much. I'll catch you guys back here on Thursday, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. Take care.